Hello boys and girls, students of Year 11, Society and Culture Online. Welcome to another great week of learning. Today we're going to be looking at lesson, I'm going to highlight everything. Lesson 5, oh my god, stop! Okay, technological malfunctions already. I don't know what it's doing. Alright, and it's still doing it. Anyway, lesson 5 here. We're going to look at social constructs today. So if you can highlight that and the syllabus dot point and date it, whatever today's date is for you, and it's on page 17. So we'll get started. Alrighty. So our dot point today is society is a construct that develops through time, and that society influences the way its members interact, and how these interactions between members of society cause change in the nature of society over time. Now, essentially what a social construct is, and I don't know if you want to draw a little arrow here, it's something that humans have made up. It's a product of our culture. It's something that we've made up, and we've made it up to assign certain values or meanings to it, in order to meet certain social expectations that we believe are true or correct, right? So if we start from here, we all have personal experiences. We've all grown up with certain beliefs and expectations, and this frames our way of thinking and how you act. Now, whether you realize that or not, it shapes the way you think and the way you act. I.e., your perspective is based off your beliefs and the value you assign to things. So, for example, a social construct would be the colours that we associate with traffic lights, right? Now go with me here. Because it frames the way we think and how we act, whether we realise it or not. When you guys are driving, or you're learning to drive at the moment, or you might be getting your P soon, I don't know what you're up to, but you've all been in the car driving before. So when we've got the colours red, amber and green, right? So red means stop, green means go, and amber means slow down or fang it through the lights, depending on who's driving. So in terms of how this is a social construct, is the red, amber and green in of themselves are just colours, okay? It's only because we've assigned meaning to those colours that they now are called traffic lights, right? So when we see the colour red at a traffic light, our social construct brains, our perspective based off our beliefs and values that we've assigned to that colour red, means that we need to stop. Okay, so the colour red on its own is just red, but when we see it in the form of a traffic light, it means stop. And it's similar when we see the green light and we know that we can go, or the green arrow telling us we can turn a certain way. All these symbols and objects are social constructs. On their own, they mean absolutely nothing. But when we assign meaning to them, that's when they actually mean something. So if we look at some of the images here, for some more examples, if we look at money, right? Money was made up. It was invented by humans. So on itself, if we look at our money, they're just bits of plastic coloured paper, right? And they've got certain numbers on it. 1, 0, certain markings, certain people on them. That means absolutely nothing until all the humans in Australia agree that that means that it's money. So if I was to, 2,000 years ago, wave a $100 note to someone, it wouldn't mean absolutely anything to them. It would mean nothing to them. But to someone in Australia, everyone in Australia has agreed upon the social construct and the idea that that is a $100 note, and I can exchange that for goods and services. In of itself, it doesn't mean anything. It's like money is now just numbers on a screen, right? It only means, say, 1 million, because we've determined in our brains that that is worth $1 million when we see those 7 digits, 10000000. In of itself, it means nothing until we as humans assign value and meaning to it. It's similar to flags here. All of these are social constructs. We know that that's Australia because the world has universally agreed that that's what our flag looks like. We know that that's Germany, Italy, France, all of that for those reasons as well. Marriage, again, is a social construct. If we look at it, it's just the meaning of it is two people coming together to symbolize that they're going to be together for life, right? That's the social construct behind it. And it's different in different cultures as well, because their beliefs and expectations and values placed upon it are very different. So yeah, they're just some examples that kind of help us get it through our head. Social construct is the constructed thoughts, concepts and practices within a particular society which both creates culture and is influenced by culture. So that's what I was saying, how they are different depending on where you are around the world. So gender, for example, here is an example of a social construct. So it's different to sex. So your sex is when you are born, you anatomically, most of the time, are born with either a vagina or a penis. And what that symbolizes there is you're going to have certain biological DNA and characteristics that match that. So if you're a penis, you're a male. If your sex is male, and if you have a vagina, your sex is female. Now, with the male, for example, that symbolizes obviously that they have the male genitalia, but they're also more likely to have biochemical influences like testosterone, which is a lot more prominent in their system. So in terms of sex, you can class them there. But gender is that idea of men and women, boys and girls. And what we've assigned that sex, so say the male with the penis has to play with trucks, you know, they have to go out and work hard all day to get the money to look after the family, they've got to wear blue, they've got to be aggressive. All of that is made up social constructs, because we know that there are men who aren't aggressive, men that stay home and look after the kids, you know, that defy those social constructs and expectations placed upon them. Yes, they may be somewhat naturally predispositioned to those things, like being more aggressive and having increased risk-taking behaviours because of chemicals, biochemicals like testosterone. And that's backed up by stats of, you know, most car crashes are men under the age of 25 and things like that, engaging in reckless behaviour. But it doesn't necessarily mean it's true. And so they're constructs. And then if you go to another culture, so Western culture, we've pretty much deconstructed the idea of gender, but in other cultures they're still very much traditional and bound by those, what we would call those traditional gender stereotypes, how the woman is staying at home, the man's going out for work. But that's just their social construction on gender. So with that in mind, we need to remember that not all social constructs, or in of themselves, they're not right or good and bad, but they are instead the things that the majority who are present in society can agree upon and what they deem necessary. So for example, if we go back to gender, our understanding of this social construct of gender today is very different to what it was 200 years ago. So 200 years ago, it would have been considered right and good to have those traditional stereotypes in, whereas in contemporary society, we've reversed that, and our social constructionism and belief is that is now wrong, and that we go by a different way of it. And that's because values and culture changes over time. So yeah, I hope that makes sense. If it doesn't, we'll go through it in some more revision. So what I want you guys to do next is complete that word bank. There, you've got 5 keywords that you can use there. And so I'll let you do that in your own time. Next example, I've got some other examples of social constructs here. Some we've gone through in our brief explanations, but I'll go through any that I don't think that will. So marriage is fine. Behaviour, I think, is pretty self-explanatory, but I guess the idea that different cultures have different levels of acceptable behaviour, and so say in some cultures it's acceptable to shake your hands when you meet someone in a professional circumstance, but in other cultures you need to shake with your other hand because their social construct or belief is if you shake with the predominant hand that you use to wipe your butt, that is considered gross. And if you go to shake someone's hand, it's more like an insult if you use the hand that you wipe your butt with, right? So whereas we don't think about that really in Western culture at all. So behaviour is very different, and that's socially constructed as well. Countries, we went through flags. Race, this idea of race is a social construct. So the idea that, or the false idea that's been proven by science, but the idea that racism still exists in the world is because of social constructs surrounding race. This idea that somehow white people are superior to black people, or that people from a particular region of the world are smarter or more sophisticated than others. So that kind of belief was spread around colonialism and when England and colonies were settling places around the world. It still exists today. It is being dismantled, which is good, but that is a social construct, the idea of race, that one is more superior than the other. Government's a social construct, this idea that we need a big parliament house, that we all elect representatives to our country. We've made all those rules up, all our laws, which are here, they're all made up. We've decided that giving meanings to certain laws in our society is the right thing to do. So for example, not driving over the speed limit is a law that mutually everyone's agreed upon. We've elected people in the government to do that. Again, all of that is a social construct. We've created that culture, we've made it up, and we've put these social institutions in place. On their own, they absolutely mean nothing. On its own, this is just some bricks painted a certain colour with some grass. It's got a piece of cloth material flying over it, but we've assigned different meaning to all of those things. And that's what makes it appear real. Authority is a social construct, the idea that we're all drilled in to ourselves at a young age, to respect your parents and your elders and people that are above you, people that may have different positions in society. So this idea that if you were to say who's got more authority, a doctor or a garbage collector, most people would say the doctor, because we have a social construct that is deemed as a higher profession than a garbage collector, even though both are really essential to our society's function. If we were to say who has more authority, most people would say the doctor, because our belief is that is of a higher quality or a higher class than a garbage collector. Language is a social construct. There's thousands of languages around the world, and we've said that different sounds coming out of our mouths with different inflections, with different letters, all mean different things, right? Again, a social construct. Our gestures, this in Western culture is a wave and means hi, but in certain parts of India it means go away. So again, a social construct there. Money we went through, gender we went through, law we went through, and beliefs and values we went through. So what I want you guys to do with this table is that in any society and culture there will be elements that are relatively unchanged, just as there will be elements that have changed. So what I want you to do is apply the concept of continuity and change to each construct in the table above. And I want you to highlight if it's changed recently in contemporary society, or you think it's currently changing. And I want you to highlight that in a certain colour. And then I want you to highlight continuities in another colour. So for example, marriage, I would say, is something that has changed in contemporary society. So marriage used to be strictly a religious practice. You could only engage in it if you were a Christian. And it used to also be exclusively between a man and a woman, but now that has both changed. You can get a civil, what are they called? A celebrant or a civil union, I can't remember the name of it, but you don't have to get married under the eye of God and the Christianity circle. You can get married and that can be legally recognised without the religious backing. And you can also have same-sex marriage now as well. So that is something that has recently changed. And what I want you to do underneath it is to justify your reasoning as to why you said it's a continuity or change, depending on what you think. So go through and do that for each of them, and then justify it. And there's only a little dot point underneath each of them on why you think it's changed or why you think it's stayed the same. So government, for example, you might say is a change because they change frequently, or you might say it's a continuity because the concept of government itself hasn't really changed much since, kings and queens back in the day. So I guess in some sense there's no right or wrong. It's whatever you think and whatever you can justify and back it up with. Although there are some that will lean more towards change than continuity, and vice versa. Once you've done that, question 2, I've got question 2 and question 3. So question 2 is, do you think social constructs are necessary for society and persons in order to function or make sense of the world? Explain your reasoning. So here essentially it's just a do you think. So again, there's no right or wrong answer. Sorry, my ear's itchy. As long as you can justify and back it up, that's more what we're after. Like, do you think we need these social constructs in order to function and make sense of the world? Like, did we come up with them because we were going insane about not having everything in its little box and everything has its little meaning? Or was it created, do you think, for authorities who are the top to try have more control over people, or whatever it is? Explain your reasoning there. And then 3, do you believe or do you think social constructs have a positive or negative impact on society? Justify your reasoning. So you have to, I guess, pick a side here, or if you want to say how they can be positive and how they can be negative, you can. But if we look at this word, or if this was a HSC question, you would have to pick one side or the other. So I guess let's pick a side. That'll make things more difficult. So whether you think it's positive or negative, you might think they have both, but for the purpose of the question and practicing HSC style things, I want you to pick a side and then justify it. Okay, so remember, justifying is pretty much saying why you're right. Okay, so you need to back that up with evidence. And on a side note, I wanted to talk about quickly things that are naturally present or inherent in society, but whose shape is formed by social constructions, I guess. So things that exist on their own without us creating them, but we still shape them in a way. So inherently they're not social constructs, they exist, but they're definitely shaped by social constructs. So things like family has always been around. Everyone is born to a mother and a father, but our idea of what family looks like and how they should behave and act is shaped by our social construction. So some cultures place a lot of value in respecting your parents and your extended family at that as well. It's not just mum and dad, but it's your aunties, cousins, uncles, grandparents. All of those are equally as important as your mother and father. Whereas other cultures, like Western culture, we have the mother and father at the top, and then while family and cousins and all that is still important, they don't replace those two figures. Whereas in some cultures, it's almost like having 5 or 6 different mothers or fathers, because the family takes care of each other in a really big way. So that's just an example there. A lot of these other ones as well are things that are naturally occurring but shaped by social constructs. And I think that's it for this lesson. Beauty. All right. Thanks for joining us. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.